Hello. I'm hoping to keep this video light. I'm once again going to dredge up some things that are hard for me to think about, much less talk about. But I unfortunately continue to think about these things. Hoping one of these days that I will have some way to just not have to deal anymore. I miss my friends. I think the problem with the hurt and anger that I feel inside is I miss my friends. They don't miss me. I wasn't very much of a friend to them. They had lots of friends. They didn't really need a screwed up person like myself as a friend, which is what I said when I was 86th from the bar. I said, you know, you don't need to stay in touch with me now that I'm not conveniently where you go. And I guess they agreed. But what I have a hard time with is being told that I need to take accountability too. I believe that I did take accountability when I kept it to myself, at least gave it my best shot at keeping it to myself. The people I told, either I was not thinking clearly because I had had too much to drink, or they were coworkers who didn't have any idea who these people were, so it was pretty safe. And I felt very bad. My punishment was having to deal with people's misperceptions of me at the bar. My punishment was not being able to understand and not getting any help to understand, and not ever getting to know if I really had a friend, getting to wonder every single time I went there. Basically, I was just looking for reassurance. I kept going there hoping, besides hoping to see other friends, I kept hoping that it would go back to the way it was. And that I would have my friend back and it would all go back. And I was really quite glad. I mean, he was like, after the first time, there was probably a week or so, every time I'd go to the bar, he would ask me when I was getting ready to leave where I was going next, which messed with my head. I didn't know what his intentions were. I didn't know why he had this sudden interest in where I was. That's partly what led to the whole thing with the China Clipper, and him asking me where I was going with Brian, and then him showing up there. I think the 3 years where I got to be treated with contempt by people who thought that I was this sleazy woman preying on a married man with 2 adorable little children. I think that, and not knowing why he was being so weird, and having to work it out myself without his guidance. Okay, made a mistake, you know, it's I think I did take accountability. I have never once said it didn't happen. I don't stand in denial. I don't look people in the face and say that it never happened. I don't lie. I do exaggerate. I am a writer, so I do exaggerate. I don't exaggerate about this. I don't say anything more than what happened. But what I have a hard time with is, like, the same thing happened with the guy who took care of me. When I think I'm going to lose a friend, I get very upset because it's a lot of work for me to make friends, and it takes me a lot to trust somebody, to start to really care. And then when I do, it's really hard for me to stop. Crows. And I forgot what I was saying. It's hard for me to make friends. I really came to care for the guy who lived with me. I've always wanted to care for people. My biggest regret in my life is my dad, when he was in the hide-a-bed downstairs, and he had this cancer, and I didn't know he was dying, and I had lots of chances. I could have said all the things that I felt in my heart, and I never got to, because nobody told me that my dad was dying. All I knew, I was, I wasn't even 6 years old yet while he was ill, mostly. He was ill for about a year. I didn't know he was dying. And I never got to say goodbye. I never got to sit by his bed, sit on his bed and tell him how much I loved him. Although I know it's silly, because little kids, every parent knows their children love them, but as an adult, I wish I could have said to my dad how much I loved him. I was a daddy's girl. I followed my dad everywhere. He had a tree nursery, and we used to go to farms, and I used to get to ride in the back of he had a blue Ford. I think it was blue. I don't know. This is a really old memory. It was either blue or red. I got to ride in the back, and then he'd get truckloads of dirt, and I used to get to ride on top of the dirt. I love my dad. I love going to the farms. While he did business, I used to explore the barns and search for barn cats up in the hay. I really had a great 5 years. Or whatever. I don't remember all of it, but I remember my dad, and I remember following him when he was mowing the lawn. And the point of this is, I never got to say goodbye. I never got to tell him how I felt, how I loved him. And for a very long time, and I guess I'm still this way, when I care for somebody, I guess I learned at a very young age that when you care for somebody, you don't know from one day to the next when they're going to not be there anymore. You don't know. I don't think it's possible for me to take for granted somebody I care about. You don't know from one day to the next, if you're going to see them again. So when I'm around people, I'm like, okay, I savor every moment. If I feel something, I say what I feel. I tell them, because I didn't get to tell my dad. And I have regretted it every single day for my whole life. I didn't get to tell the most important person in my life. And now in retrospect, I look back and I'm like, okay, he was the one that made sense. He was the one that wasn't crazy. And then I think it's because I'm too honest, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. I tell people if I care for them. I tell people if they matter to me. And you know what happens? People say, oh, you're infatuated. This guy, Tim, I was infatuated with him. Even after I wasn't. I actually was never infatuated with him. He was the second man in my life that I have loved. Well, if you count my dad, he was the third man in my life that I've loved. But I did get over the feelings that I had for him because of the fact that he didn't have them for me, and we went through a very hard time together, and I was very gradually becoming used to the idea that I was a friend, and I considered myself a friend like Paul was his friend. I considered myself on that level. I was fully ready and prepared and happy to be the female equivalent of a really good friend. That's how I felt. And I communicated how much he mattered to me, and he interpreted that as infatuation or that I was still in love with him. And I don't know, maybe that's what people saw when I was around this bartender too. I truly appreciated him because he was so nice to me. So nice to me. And I haven't had that very much, you know? But I feel like, and I tried so hard. It's like they told me, okay, Diane, you need to be happier. People don't like to talk to you or sit by you because you're not happy, because I was really depressed. I tried so hard to not be depressed. I don't know what else I could have done to make it better at that bar. Anyway, I feel like people blame me. I feel like this is an analogy I came up with a couple days ago. You know, you have a catapult with a boulder in it, and the catapult launches the boulder at the castle, and the boulder hits the castle and makes a complete just ruin of the wall. And they blame the boulder for wrecking the wall. The catapult, they don't even look at the catapult. They're looking at the boulder and the ruined wall. But who threw the boulder? The guy who was standing behind the catapult and cut the ropes. The guy made the decision to let the projectile fly, okay? I have been a mess. I'm not saying that it's all these people's fault. Of course I take responsibility and accountability. I made mistakes. I caved when I shouldn't have caved, and because I caved, I have had nothing but really, I've lost everything. Because I caved. Because I was caught at a very weak, vulnerable time in my life. Because I was intoxicated. Because I let myself become intoxicated. Because I was afraid to go home because I didn't like to be lonely. Because I liked the idea of having this man give me attention. He looked at me like I actually existed, and that meant so much. That made me feel good. That made me feel like, oh my God, I'm not nothing. I'm not garbage. That's what I loved about that bartender. He made me feel like I wasn't garbage. He made me feel like I was good. But people blame the boulder. The boulder got to be blamed. Not only I don't even know how to say it. I don't know if the analogy makes any sense. It makes sense to me, but I feel like if this man I took care of had even just tried to be pleasant and polite and respectful to me, you know, instead of treating me like trash, and like he had utter contempt for me when he left my home. He had utter contempt for me, and all I wanted was to try to hold on to some small shred of a friendship that I had come to really value, to a man that I had come to really care about. And for that, he had contempt for me. Utter contempt. He didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want to look at me. He didn't want to know I existed. Between that and then what the bartender did, I feel like the boulder and the catapult launched at the damn castle. And people blame me. And they don't even notice the catapult. The catapult is still everybody's pal. Everybody still thinks the catapult's wonderful. Tim is still wonderful to everybody. The bartender's still wonderful to everybody. My husband has a child that I never got to have. It's just not, I just don't think it's really, I'd like to know why I was so asking too much that I hoped somebody might be supportive for me. I gave my support to somebody for 2 years, somebody who is a friend of a lot of people, that they really, somebody that they really value. And when I was in, I just don't understand why people couldn't stand by me. And I don't know, this video didn't go the way I wanted it to, but I guess accountability. I think the people that contributed to the situation should take accountability too. The person who lived with me when he was ill, did he even once consider how that would affect me? I mean, it's like, okay, every single day I woke up and wondered if what I would find when I went out to my living room. Every single day. Wondering. Anyway, that's all. I just wish people would understand there's a cause for every cause. There's an effect. You play with somebody's mind. You let people think things that they come to really appreciate and value that aren't true, and then you jerk the rug out from under them, and they're really upset by it, and it causes them a great deal of harm. And in their harm, then they cause harm, because depressed people do. Depressed people are hurting people, and hurting people are cause, well, anyway, that's all. And I guess thanks for listening.